Sudan and South Sudan were once one country in the heart of Africa. This region has been home to some of the greatest African empires in history, such as the Kingdom of Kush, and has over 40 million inhabitants. However, in 1899, Egypt and Britain signed a contract that essentially made Sudan a British colony. This new Anglo-Egyptian-run country was mostly influenced by Britain, who sought to uplift the economy of Sudan and modernize its systems to make them more in line with Western ideologies. Sudan was run by Britain as two separate territories, North and South, until 1946. In the South were black Christians and animist rebels, and the Arab Muslims in the North. In 1946, British officials combined both because of pressure from the North. However, this angered the South because they saw themselves as socially different from the North and that this junction was done without their consent. After a vote on January 1, 1956, Sudan became an independent country. In 1962, the South Sudanese Christians wanted representation in the government, and this led to the First Sudanese Civil War. In 1972, an agreement was reached at Addis Ababa that would have given Southern Sudanese more representation from their northern counterparts. However, this agreement failed to solve many of the problems. It took only 11 years before the Second Sudanese War began, and is widely regarded as just a continuation of the previous conflict. In 1978, oil reserves were found in the southern region of Sudan, and this only added to the conflict because it attracted the economically prosperous North. In September 1983, President Nimyari passed legislation that imposed Islamic Sharia, or law, on all of Sudan. The Christian majority in the South were highly displeased with this, and in a response, John Garang, a young tribesman in the South, founded the SPLA, or the Sudan People Liberation Army. While its main goal was liberation, it can be inferred that a supplementary goal of theirs was to obtain the oil fields in the South. In 1985, Nimyari was removed from presidency and a council was instituted. Soon afterward, al-Bashir and his Northern Islamic Front, NIC, took power in a military coup. During this time period, the SPLA continued its attacks even though the northern government tried both political and military options to stop them. The UN also placed sanctions on Sudan during this period. Though little evidence has come to light, al-Bashir is assumed to have helped arm Janjaweed militias who partook in ethnic cleansings of non-Muslims in Darfur. In November 1997, the US government imposed a trade embargo, namely on oil, against Sudan and a total asset freeze against the government. In 2001, after the 9/11 attacks, further sanctions were placed on Sudan for possibly funding terrorism. In 2002, opposing leaders met for the first time for peace talks with Uganda's president. In 2004, a peace agreement was finally met, but ethnic cleansing problems of the Darfur region still exists. The attacks can be considered as a genocide. However, because of the oil in the region, most governments are reluctant to stop the attacks due to amount of wealth available. Any attempts to stop it are blocked by China and the UN, who sees the oil as a valuable resource. From 2008-2009, UN troops were finally sent in to stop the attacks. In 2011, a peace agreement with the factions in the Darfur region was reached, but conflict still arises to this day. Also in 2011, South Sudan seceded from Sudan to create its own country. South Sudan, unfortunately, did not have a formal government and was instead run by a few warring factions. Today, Sudan's government can still be called one of the most corrupt in the world. South Sudan remains rife with conflict between its warring factions. However, recently, South Sudan's three major warring factions have been meeting for peace talks, and so a truce may be finished soon.